Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about some book recommendations, and specifically I want to talk about my favorite recent reads by Asian authors. I try to do this video every year, so there is already a bit of an accumulation. If you want to go and check out the older versions of this video, I will leave them linked down below. But today we're going to look at the books by Asian authors that I read in the past year, and especially the ones that I enjoyed very much, obviously, because these are reading recommendations. So I will go through this by genre, but because fantasy is the main genre that I read, I do have the most recommendations for this one, and we are going to talk about 10 books overall. So let's start out with fantasy, and these are in no particular order, so let's just dive in. The most recent book that I have finished and just need to recommend is The Poet Empress by Shen. This is a dark fantasy book where we follow a young girl or young woman who is growing up in the countryside in a Chinese-inspired world, and the countryside is very poor. They are having a famine, so a lot of the villagers are passing away. The newborn children don't really have any chances to live, and that is when our main character learns that the future emperor is looking for concubines. So she decides to volunteer for her village, and through some very interesting circumstances, she actually makes it into the selection process and also actually gets chosen. And it's all about the power, the palace, the kind of political machinations. This is also about childhood trauma and kind of what dynasties can do to children. It is a very dark read, so I would recommend looking up some content warnings, but I very much enjoyed this book. It kind of hit the same vein as She Who Became the Sun, which is one of my favorite duologies, so I really like this one. Next up, we have a whole trilogy that I read last year, and if you want, I can link the series reading vlog down below where I discuss this series in detail, but that is the Bone Witch series by Rin Chupeco. In this one, we are again following a young girl, and when her brother is killed in a war against these very dangerous beings, she is so wrecked by grief that during the funeral, she accidentally discovers her magic, and she has bone magic. So she's basically a necromancer, and she accidentally brings her brother back to life because of that. But there are different kinds of magic in this world, and this specific kind, these bone witches, are very much frowned upon. People don't really trust them, and so a adult witch shows up in this village and is taking our main character away, so she is not in danger from like other people doing stuff to her. And so she gets introduced to this whole group of people who have magic, but she has a hard time navigating all of that. What I really liked about this book is that we have this feeling of martial arts schools where, you know, these kids get trained to become fighters. They also train in their magic, but then this also has this concubine aspect to it because they also train in entertaining and being, you know, graceful and beautiful. And so it's a very, very rich kind of magic world that we get shown here. And our main character is basically starting to discover all of the secrets of this magic. Now we're changing gears a little bit because I wanted to talk about A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This is a cozy fantasy with a romance in it. I absolutely love these cozy books by Sangu Mandanna because they have the correct mix of kind of like fantasy and magic, of a plot that is very intriguing and has actual stakes, but then also the coziness, the found family, and the romance. So for me, the balance in this book is absolutely perfect. I even like this one more than the, whatever it's called, Irregular Witches Society. Those long titles, you guys. But yeah, Magical Innkeeping is just really, really sweet, but it starts with kind of a sad moment. We have our main character who is a young witch and she has lost her parents. She's currently growing up with her aunt. And one day she finds that her aunt had something like a heart attack and she passed away out in the gardens. And our main character, with the help of her weird little fox friend, decides to bring her aunt back to life because she really doesn't know what to do. She's still a child in a way. So that costs her all of her magic. And she was like a prodigy. Like, people were so like hyping her up. The way her magic worked was like a once in a lifetime situation. And so after this whole thing, she doesn't really have any magic left, but there is kind of a threat going on in this world a little bit. And so someone shows up at this magical inn who is maybe possibly helping her to get the magic back. I love that in this book, the magical inn works in a way that only people who really need it find the inn. So we have this like really interesting mix of characters who currently live at the inn. Next up, we have The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water, talking about those long titles that I can never remember. This book is by Shen, and this is more of a novella. We are following this person who works also at like a restaurant or an inn or something like that, when a group of bandits shows up, and because of stuff that happens very quickly in the beginning of the book, these characters then travel together, and it's about their secrets, maybe some secret connections. What I liked about this one is that it had this very unique kind of narration style that very much reminded me of the Singing Hills Cycles book by Niveau. It has this very fairy tale-esque kind of saga situation that I really enjoyed. And this one is very, very queer as well. And I just felt like it took a while to get into the story, but once I had connected to these characters and kind of the mystery that is going on, I absolutely loved it. Now, I think for now, the author doesn't have any plans to continue on with these characters, but in a weird way, this almost feels like a prequel novella, so my little heart has not given up hope that maybe one day there will be more. Then we have my favorite book that I read last year, and that is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This is again a very unique story with a very unique style of narration. We do have parts of the story that feel more modern and are written in second person, where we have a person who is kind of going to this theater to see a play, but it's not real. Like, it's not a real theater. It is more like a mind thing. And then we have kind of the story that is, the play that is put on in this theater. And in this play, we have two characters who have to carry this basically corpse of a goddess through a falling empire. It's like literally crashing down around them. And it is, again, very gay. It's a beautiful, beautiful love story. And it is so much more than that as well. I think this is a book, like, if I could, like, put my essence, my soul into a book, it would be this one. This book was so absolutely fantastic. And I know that no matter what I say, I cannot do it justice at all. But again, I have a whole reading vlog for this one, so I will link it down below if you want to hear all of my thoughts right when I was reading the book. And last but not least, for fantasy, I could not do this video without mentioning my favorite comic book series, and that is Monstress by Sana Takeda and Marjorie Liu. This is just so good, and last year I read volume 9 for the first time. I have volume 10 on my TBR right now, and I cannot wait. Now, I feel like this series has really peaked around, I think, volume 5 or 6. So right now I'm not like absolutely loving where the story is going, but it's still just like so visually pleasing and such a unique story that I had to mention it. In this one, we are following Micah Halfwolf as our main character. We are looking at a fantasy world that is divided into humans and arcanics. Arcanics usually have more like animal parts to them. So with Micah, she has some wolfiness going on, as you would guess from her name. And then also Micah has this little friend that is half fox. My absolute favorite character Kippa. I love her so much. I love Kippa so much. The humans and the Organics are at war, and the humans also have these weird witches on their side, and these witches basically need dead Organics to fuel their magic. So you can probably guess this is very, very dark. It's a very dark series. There's war, there's like all kinds of violence. Micah has this dead god living inside of her that is also like, you know, all fun and games. And it's all about kind of like how the god got into her and how they're connected and what it all means. Basically, they're just trying to figure out what is going on. And this also has a lot to do with Micah's mother as well. So there is so much going on, so many layers, so much betrayal as well. I'm eating it up. That was that for fantasy. Now I have 2 mystery books to recommend to you. And those are both in the same series by the same author. And it is obviously Vera Wong by Jessie Q. Sutanto. Now, I read both of these books last year. I read the second book while I was on vacation on Mallorca, and I still have so many like memories attached to that. I was crying at the beach. That's what this book did to me. But yeah, Vera Wong, we have 2 books, 2 mysteries. Each book is a separate case. Vera Wong is an older Chinese lady who has a tea shop, and in the first book, she gets dragged into the crime-solving game because a person shows up dead in her tea shop. And so she's trying to figure out what happened there. In the second book, we do have a bit of a different mystery where Vera is much more involved in getting herself into the case, but it's also, I think, a bit more of a touching case, like even more than the first book. Both of these are just basically Vera getting a ton of people who she thinks are suspects and then making her own little found family out of that. And it's like very cute, very hilarious, and I cannot recommend these books enough if you haven't picked them up. Like if you're looking for cozy fantasy that is fun and engaging, you need to read Vera Wong. Then for a classic, more of a modern classic, I have Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. So this is a Turkish author, even though he was technically born before Turkey was a thing. And this is a book that follows some characters in like the 40s or 50s in Turkey, but then one of the characters is telling his life story of how he met a woman in the 1920s in Berlin. So we do have this kind of connection of kind of the Western and the Eastern world in this time frame, and we do have a love story at the core of things, but it does take a little bit of time to actually get to that. We do learn quite a bit about some other characters first, who are then the characters who tell each other the story, basically. And yeah, this was a very interesting book. Definitely, you know, a classic in a sense that the narrative structure is so different from how we would tell a story today. Like you are almost halfway through the book before the whole love story part actually appears. Now, reading this, I definitely didn't get all the nuance, but I thought the introduction to the book was very helpful to understand more about how clever this book is and kind of like the themes that are woven through. So I had a really good time reading this, and I have to be honest, I didn't really know a lot about the end of the Ottoman Empire and kind of like the beginnings of Turkey as a nation. So it was very interesting to read this book, and I would definitely read more from this author. And then last but not least, I have one nonfiction book that I wanted to recommend, and that is Disability Intimacy, edited by Alice Wong. Now, not all the stories in this book are from Asian authors, but this is just a collection of essays written by people with disability, and specifically this collection deals with questions of intimacy and how intimacy is a very different thing for people with disabilities, how it is very important for this community to kind of reframe what intimacy means for them, and that there are so many layers to it as well, and so many like different kinds of intimacy you can experience with different people. I really loved that we had quite a few essays in here that dealt with art, especially photography, and also the whole like pandemic situation was very prevalent in this collection as well, as this is kind of the time when the essays were written. So we can definitely see how that has impacted the essays in a lot of ways too. So I thought this was a fantastic collection. There's definitely something to learn for everyone. And as I said, especially if you like kind of like photography things, I think you will enjoy quite a few of these essays. But there were also like other ones, like I still remember one that was about one of the authors and their pet. And obviously, if you're talking cats, you will get right into my heart. I cried so hard with that. Now, sadly, Alice Wong has passed away now, and I think it is like one of the most tragic things that has happened because, yeah, she was such an important voice, and the way she brought so many fantastic authors together to write these collections, like Disability Intimacy, but also Disability Visibility, if you didn't know. Yeah, I think you should absolutely read them. They're so important and great. And as I said, anybody can still learn something from those collections. So it's editing kitty here, I'm so sorry, but I forgot to mention a book and I just quickly wanted to throw this in here so it doesn't go unnoticed, and that is The Unwomanly Face of War by Svetlana Alexievich. This is also a non-fiction book where a journalist is interviewing women who were part of the military in the Second World War for Russia. This is very much an anti-war book where it discusses the horrors of war, especially for the women, but also the strength of these women, the discrimination that they faced after the war, and it's just a fantastic book, and I would highly recommend you check this one out as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention it when I just filmed that part. And with that, we have made it through my recommendations of new to me books that I absolutely loved in the last year, written by Asian authors. I hope there was something there for you. If you want to pick any of these books up now, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And then also leave me your recommendations, because I'm always looking for more amazing books by Asian authors. Yeah, I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to leave a like, that really helps me out. And I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!